Today's episode of The Lucky Orange Show features a conversation with Daniela Woerner. Daniela is the CEO of Addo Aesthetics, which provides coaching and consulting for spa owners. Now, I know that most of you listening are not spa owners specifically, but this conversation was all about going from chaos to confidence as an entrepreneur, which I know will resonate with a lot of you. Throughout our conversation, Daniela provided a whole host of strategies and ideas that we could deploy for anybody throughout the entrepreneurial journey. Things like systems thinking and directional decision making, and how to realize what season of life you're in. Really enjoyed this conversation with Daniela and hope you do too. So if you're ready, let's go chat with Daniela. One of the things that I picked up on in what you talk about and your website and everywhere is helping people go from chaos to confidence. And you've framed it up as using some systems thinking and stuff like that. So I think that's a good place for us to dive in here is in the framework of Addo Aesthetics and what you do. How do you help people get from chaos to confidence?
Well, I think you got it right away when you talked about systems. I believe that knowledge is power. And so often with entrepreneurship and in the spa industry specifically, people get into it for passion. People get into it because they want to help people. They are very empathetic. And that's a really important part of a successful business. But in order to feel confident and feel I'm someone who values security and predictability, and those are not really common traits in entrepreneurship. There's a lot of risk and this roller coaster of going up and down. And the way to mitigate that and really build a strong, predictable, reliable business, one that cash flows, is through systems. It's through systems and through data. And we've got to be comfortable looking at numbers, looking at metrics, understanding what they mean, and saying, hey, this is the language my business is speaking to share the health of the business with the CEO. But there's so much tied up in the entrepreneur's identity. And if the business fails, then I'm a failure. Or if, all of those types of beliefs, when it's really, we just need to listen to what the business is telling us to understand what is the next right step. So that's that kind of that chaotic feeling of, am I going to make enough money for payroll? Am I going to do? Well, the confidence comes in knowing those types of things and having the solutions.
And that's, if you're listening to this and you're saying, I don't own a spa, let's pause for a second, because what we're really talking about here is really running any sort of entrepreneurial effort. We're talking about, I've got a good idea. I want to launch a store. I want to do this. I can easily over-romanticize this picture where I just flip a switch and it runs and it works perfectly. That's just not how it works. Could you talk a little bit about what chaos might look like in this situation? So is it lacking the data we need to make good decisions? Is it just the overwhelming nature of, like you said, keeping up with the day-to-day? What does that look like for somebody to self-identify?
Yeah, I think it's wearing all the hats in your business. And so there's a difference between, and I'll use spa as an example because that's who I work with, but this can absolutely be applied to any business. So a lot of times in spa, they're starting out as a provider, as the person who is doing the services. Well, they're being the provider. They're also being the manager. They're also being the CEO. They're being the marketer. All of these things. And at some point, you're not giving your business what the business needs to grow. You're not put all this energy and risk and passion into something, and you're just kind of letting it go to the wind, because you're not fully taking responsibility for that role. So whatever your type of business, there's certain roles that business needs to, there's the fulfillment, there's operations, there's sales and marketing, there's HR, right? There's all of these different pieces. And I think what happens is people experience burnout. They get decision fatigue. So that's kind of one of these terms that before I became a business owner, I was like, what are these people talking about? Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But when you are responsible every single day for making decision after decision after decision, it gets exhausting. And you almost get paralyzed of, I don't know what the next right thing is. And so someone who's in chaos would feel that they don't have strong boundaries, right, with their clients. They may be giving their clients their personal phone numbers. They may be changing their hours to accommodate out of a sense of fear that if I don't go in or if I don't serve this client or patient, then they're going to go somewhere else. And that's operating from a place of scarcity or fear, which is also chaos, right?
Right.
So it's establishing those boundaries, understanding what is truly urgent and what should your priorities be. We do this exercise inside of one of our programs where we have the CEOs do a time tracker and understand what is it that they're actually spending their time on day to day. And we had one gal that spent 6 hours on email every day. And it's like, no wonder you're not getting anything done. You're somebody else's to-do list. You're busy all day, but you're not making progress on the goals that you are setting for yourself. So that's an important piece.
When you own a business and you build it from zero and it's all of your money's invested in it, I imagine though it can be difficult to be comfortable giving other people the reins to take on part of the business, the email or whatever it might be.
100%.
Systems can help, but how do you help people understand that even once they recognize that they shouldn't be doing something, that they can trust somebody to do it?
So there's kind of two parts to that. So you don't go from first to fifth when you're driving a manual, right? You go in these different stages. I started as me, myself, and I as a consultant in this industry, and you create these little milestones. So my first hire was actually a virtual assistant from the Philippines. And that individual, 10 years later is still with me today. And so you can hire really great quality help that is not like paying a 50, 60, 70, 100,000 a year salary. You can hire somebody for as little as, $250 a month and get some extra support. If that can free up even 5 hours a week of your time, you have that much more time that you can dedicate to being a CEO. And I think that leadership, you asked about like, how do we trust that someone can hold the reins? Leadership is a skill. It's something that you have to learn how to effectively communicate to those around you what you need to be supported and what your expectations are. And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs are this type A, hustle hard, kind of masculine energy that's like, I'm going to get it done. And not everybody is that energy. And there's a difference in the mindset between CEOs and between employees. And there's not a right or wrong. There's not a good or bad. It's how you think, it's how you see the world. And a lot of people, a lot of employees, which we need to operate our businesses and make our dreams, they want to come in and do their job and they want to do it well and they want to be committed and then they want to go home and they don't want to think about, am I going to make payroll? They want that safety and security. And so for us as leaders, we have to be able to effectively communicate what we need, be able so that they can perform their job well. And we can pass off little by little these tasks that will allow us to continually evolve into our role.
Yeah. It's like, it's super cliche, but work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
The extreme ownership idea, nobody's ever going to care as much about your business as you will. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Let them brace their own rules. There's a lot of different ways to think about it. You mentioned, go ahead.
Have you read Extreme Ownership?
I've not, but I am a fan of the people involved in that.
Yeah.
I need to read it though, because it definitely is at least that core idea, without having read it, that core idea makes a whole lot of sense to me. And I think that you can still get people to buy into vision, mission, everything you're doing, committing themselves while they're there, but understanding that if you go beyond that boundary, if they're getting emails from you every night at 8 o'clock at night and they're not responding and you're getting resentful about that, there's a problem. So I really need to add it to the list.
Yeah, it's super good. Super good. Worth the read.
You mentioned kind of a maturity phasing of going from chaos to confidence and success and all this. And, I imagine part of it is people find what you do and they say, okay, I think that I could use some help here. How do we go from that state of like, I can barely remember to eat breakfast because I'm answering emails 6 hours out of the day, to those next steps where you start to gain ground? How do you get people moving in the right direction?
So my philosophy, and I think it's important to just to give you context of kind of my core beliefs of who I am as an individual. I always think that family is going to be more important than your business. And I think that your health is more important than your business. And so there's a lot of personal development that I tie into trainings because ultimately you created that, right? If you're in a place where, and so there's some boundary issues that need to be dealt with. There's some people pleasing tendencies that need to be dealt with, and some stories maybe that you've created in your mind that need to be dealt with. And so it's first accepting responsibility that you created this situation, and so you can get out of this situation. No is a complete sentence. So you do not need to, and I see this more with women than with men, not that men don't have these issues as well, but as women, we tend to, sure, I can do that. Yes, I can come in there. I'll do it. Or it's just easier if I do it myself. So I'm going to get it done because I don't want to take the extra time to communicate, right? So
Sure.
there's these different pieces that tie in. And so when I'm looking at time availability and working with someone who is in that overwhelmed space, we're first doing the time tracker and understanding what the heck they're doing from morning till night. And then we're going to look at, well, what does a balanced schedule look like in this season of life? Because there are seasons where I'm more motivated and focused and working longer hours. And there's seasons where I need to just have a sustain year instead of a growth year, because business is a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm in it for the long haul. And so I know that it's okay to take a pause at mile 6. If I need to just sustain the business and kind of regroup so that my mind is clear, I'm feeling balanced, so that I'm not operating my business and making CEO decisions from an overworked and overwhelmed place. That is a big problem, and that is going to ultimately hurt your business worse than taking a sustain year. So it's really understanding what's on their plate. There's obviously a financial responsibility that you've got bills to pay, you got to keep a roof over your head, you've got to put food on the table. We don't have to double our revenue every single year. We don't have to hit 7 figures in year 3, or year 2, or whatever people are wanting to do because they saw some random person on Instagram say that they did X, Y, or Z. It's really looking at it as a long-term commitment.
Wow, that's so good. It makes a lot of sense to put what appears on the surface, at least, to be more challenging, energy requiring work first before we even start talking about specific systems to put in place, or documents, or MarTech to add into your stack. These things, it's like, let's pause, admit that there's some inconvenient truths going on here, that like we've created this system, we've gotten bad habits, we've built something to be proud of and built something that's requiring more. So that's awesome. But that hard work of like looking inside and looking around, and it's not as easy as what somebody might want you to believe, which is like, if you just start using this document, your problems will all be solved. It's like, we're talking about humans here, building a
We're talking about
business.
identity, and we're talking, there's a lot, because those behaviors come from scarcity, right? Mm-hmm. And so we need to get back our confidence and our belief in who we are and what we're capable of, and be able to see from a higher level. There was a conference that I was at, and the gentleman that was speaking did a training where he showed a picture of Times Square from like ground level, and you're looking around and there's lights and billboards and people and everything everywhere. And then he showed Times Square again from like, a little bit higher up, and you could see a little more clearly. You could, oh, this goes this way, as a, 6th floor view. And then he showed it from the very like top, and you could see all of Manhattan. And the point that he was trying to make was like, look, you as the CEO, you want to be in the penthouse seeing not just the 5-year plan, but the 20-year plan. And you can see so much more clearly. You can see further out. You can see bigger picture than when you're in it. And this is when people say you want to work on the business, not in it. When you're in it, you're ground level at Times Square. What fire is happening today? What do I need to put out? What email do I need to respond to? But that's not going to be the best use of your time long term. That might be a short-term solution, but it's not going to help you get to that 1-year goal or 3-year goal or 10-year goal.
Yeah. And you talked about decision fatigue. I think that ties directly in here too, where the leader should be making more directional decisions. So they should be making these decisions that do align with that 3-year plan, that say, I know as the leader that if I do this thing, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th thing that'll happen after that, I'm pushing us in that direction because I can see that whole picture. And I'm not just stuck in it saying, we just need to solve this crisis right now. What's either the easiest, or maybe it's hard, but it's still just a window field thinking.
It's like trying to put a piece of IKEA furniture together without the instructions.
Right. Nightmare.
You build something, but it's like, it's probably not going to be a coffee table, or whatever you're trying to put together. And so it's understanding, like, what do I want? Entrepreneurship, people go into it, they want financial freedom, they want time freedom, right? These are the things. And ultimately, right, obviously they want to solve a problem, or there's something they enjoy, they see a need for something, but ultimately they want time freedom and financial freedom. And so you have to look at, well, what does that look like for you? And am I making choices in my business that are helping me get closer to that? Looking at your service menu, understanding your profit margins, understanding your time boundaries, understanding what you're going to put on your schedule, what you're going to say no to. There's going to be so many shiny objects. There's going to be so many opportunities that come your way over the course of operating your business. And it's really hard to be like, oh, that business down the street just did that. And that's an opportunity. And so even though that totally doesn't align with the plan that I set out for myself, that I took all this time and energy on, I'm going to do that. And then it's like, oh, shoot, I probably shouldn't have wasted 6 weeks doing this new strategy that doesn't align with my long-term goal.
Yeah. That was kind of where I wanted to go next was, we can talk about building a bulletproof plan and doing the hard work up front, but the reality is, and you're an entrepreneur, so I'm sure you've seen this play out in your own world, not everything works. And in some cases, like you just drew an example to, sometimes we look back and say, man, we just wasted weeks, or maybe even worse, we just wasted thousands of dollars, or we made this misstep. I made a directional decision as the leader that put us behind track towards our goals. How do you help people navigate that? Because I think it is one thing to build that initial momentum and say, okay, I'm ready for change. I'm going to build a system. I'm ready to go. 3-6 months down the road, if it's not working, how do you help people navigate those road bumps, those speed bumps, and maybe even sometimes those things that make them question if they should even keep going? How do you help people think through that?
So there's two things. Number one, everybody is going to make a mistake, and you just have to accept that and be gentle with yourself and know that part of entrepreneurship is, I don't think it should always be this way, but sometimes you really are just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. What is, like, especially in the early stages, you've got to try new things, but you've got to be able to try them and then, okay, this doesn't work or that doesn't work, so I'm going to pivot. And the way that we understand if something works or doesn't work is by looking at the data. So tracking specifically our marketing. So something that's, if I can talk about metrics for a minute, when we look at lifetime customer value, that's a really important metric that doesn't get talked about all of the time. And I see this a lot when people are running Facebook ads. And let's say that they're spending $1,000 on ads, and maybe they actually only get $800 worth of services that come in from those ads. So they're like, oh, shoot, I'm negative. These Facebook ads aren't working. I'm not going to do them anymore. I'm so upset. But in spa, we hope to see people on a monthly basis. Sometimes we see them on a quarterly basis. So that one client or patient that you got to come in, and maybe let's say with $1,000 of ads, maybe you got 5 clients and maybe you retain 3 of them. Well, if you understand your lifetime customer value, which for a spa usually falls between $2,000 to $3,000 over the course of a year, big picture, you're winning. So you turn off those ads and you're lowering the long-term financial success of your business. So if you're looking at it and thinking, oh, I failed because I'm looking just at this month and it's negative, that is something that you're like, this is not working. There's other things like SEO that can take a little bit longer. You need a good 90-day window, I think, to understand, hey, is this strategy working? Should we tweak this? Should we, how is that going? And that's what HLM is so great. They're great with a lot of things, but we love them for their websites and SEO in the spa space. But that's, when to pivot when you say, okay, our ads aren't working. We're not getting leads and we spend $1,000 and nobody's coming in, or, because oftentimes you don't get it right the first time, you have to tweak it. By tweaking it, it's understanding what your clients are looking for from you.
Yeah. I want to shift a little bit into your own journey. You spent quite a bit of time. I think your website even says 14 years in the industry. And
I think it's an old website. I'm almost at 20 now. Yeah, we're redoing our website. But yes, Perfect. It's been quite a while.
Right. 20 years. I mean, my question is, I think when people go into consulting and go into providing services to other entrepreneurs, it is very tempting to go broad. And you've niched down specifically. I realize it's towards something that you have deep experience with, but I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how you made that decision to say, I'm confident enough that there's a need here that I can fill, and that this is a place where I can shape a service that's really, really needed, as opposed to saying, I'm just a general marketing consultant and I can help you with anything when it comes to your business, even if you might be able to do that. Tell me about that decision.
Well, I mean, in full transparency, I had no idea what I was doing when I started my business. I had always been in spa. I worked as an esthetician. I always was someone who got promoted to spa manager, spa director, patient care coordinator. I was fulfilling those roles working with dermatologists or plastic surgeons. Okay. And I was very happy doing that. I had always thought, I'll go into, my dad was an entrepreneur. And so I thought, okay, I'd always been around entrepreneurs. And so I thought maybe when I'm in my 40s, I'll start my own business. I'm 43 now. And that was always kind of my mindset of like, maybe when I'm there, that's what I'll do. And when I was at a job in Boston where I was director of medical services for a 3-location day spa med spa, There were 200 employees between the 3 locations. They brought me on to start the medical spa. So I helped the team, they're an incredible team, to find the medical director, to bring on the physician dispense skincare, to bring on energy-based devices, and to help train the staff that would be performing those services between the 3 locations. And so for me, I was like, this is my dream job. I love this place. I love this community, all of that. Well, my husband, who was active duty military, got 5 weeks notice that we were moving to DC. And so I said, well, I'm either going to be a nurse and just move into medical, or I'm going to have to start my own business, because I'm not going to go to a new spa and potentially move every single year, because that just doesn't work. And so I knew that I had always been a part of teams that helped practices grow to 7 figures very quickly. And so I understood the marketing piece of it and the business side of it. And that had always been something that just naturally I was interested in. And so I said, okay, I'm going to start consulting. And I also always did really well with retail. And so that was my best next step. And as I continued to learn and grow and evolve, it expanded further and further from there. And probably about 6 years ago, I started getting people say, why are you in spa? Why aren't you moving into other industries? Because you're teaching sales funnels, you're teaching digital marketing, you're teaching KPIs, you're teaching business operations. It doesn't have to be in spa. It can be anywhere. And for me, the business is also, it's really important that it brings the CEO joy. And I love spa. I love what we do. I love that we are giving individuals confidence. I love the providers in this industry. There's a lot of really incredible women and men, but we're primarily women, and they make me happy. And so love serving those individuals and getting to know them. And so that's why I've stayed in this place. But I do believe that the brand that does everything is the brand that does nothing. And so if you try and be a jack of all trades, it's going to be really hard to get your leverage. So for me, at first, it was just, what is the next right step? Because my life as a military spouse meant that I was going to move 12 times over the next 10 years. I didn't know that then, but that's what happened. And so I made the right choice in creating something and building a business around the life that I wanted to live. I didn't want to give up my career, but I always had to look at, what season of life am I in? How can I create something that will continue to serve my needs and also provide value to my clients?
Yeah. And you know, if you put yourself in that position to succeed, you put yourself in the position where you say, you know, I understand what this season of life is allowing me. Okay, I've got to make a decision. And kind of like we talked about before, the entrepreneurial journey is not just filled with ups, it's ups and downs and, you know, roundabouts and stop signs and whatever it might be that we say, okay, is this the right direction? And you just keep going.
What's the next right step? I mean, you may start a family. You may have an elderly parent that you need to care for. You may have an illness yourself. You may just want to go on a sabbatical and travel the world. Like, it doesn't matter what the thing is. You just have to understand, what season of life am I in, and how can I build a business that's going to allow me to live the life that I want to live.
Yeah. And frankly, you know, you including one thing that I think is really important is the human connection you have with the people that you're working with and that you're consulting, and saying, these people and seeing them succeed brings me joy. I think that it's easy when we look at like entrepreneurship Twitter and we look at these different people talking in echo chambers about getting to 10K a month within whatever. And, you know, there's no excuse not to be making this much money as an entrepreneur. These things, in my opinion, at least, that's the wrong messaging. The financial side can take care of itself if you're successful, but treating it as a pursuit against the right things feels like it puts you in a better chance to succeed, a better position to be successful in the long term because you can more easily weather those challenges that come up.
I think that women are really incredible. And for me to see what a woman is capable of, I think women oftentimes lack confidence in what they're capable of. And so when I see somebody who gets back up after she falls down, who, hits some big milestone and actually starts to see that glimmer in her eye of what she's capable of, it's like it becomes this mission for me to show these individuals how capable they are to do great things and what they can accomplish. And that for me it's like a mission to be like, you are so incredible. And so for me, it's a joy to like see these women light up and build their own confidence, because that passes into communities. They have better relationships with their spouse or their children. They have better friendships. When they believe in themselves more, it only passes on to all of the individuals in their lives in a positive way. So for me, it's the money comes, and the money is, I don't think you have to have a understanding of what is success for you. Success might be working 2 days a week and making $5,000 a week, or it might be, making $10 million. It doesn't matter. Are you defining what success means to you, and are you creating a business that gives you that success?
Yeah, I love that. Well, I know you're a busy person, so I appreciate you carving out time to chat. I am curious, as you look towards the rest of the year. We're recording this in August. We'll probably go live in September, October. I'm curious, as you look through the end of the year, what has you most excited in your space and in what you're working on?
Community and relationships. I think that is, we saw post-COVID there, and even during COVID, that came up a lot. We saw a lot of small businesses really deepening the relationships with their clients and patients. And I think that entrepreneurs in general, we're a different breed, and having your own community. I was on the call with a gal the other day, and she laid out this vision of just a nationwide plan of licensing and franchising and all this stuff. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And you could do this. And she's like, it's so refreshing to talk to another entrepreneur who thinks, oh, that's awesome, instead of you are completely out of your mind for like dreaming something so big. And so I think that, my focus in the remainder of 2024 and all in 2025 is going to be really focusing on deep, meaningful connection, community, and relationships, because that is ultimately what brings you joy, happiness, connection, success, opens doors. It's the key to everything.
Yeah, I love that. Well, if anybody's interested in following along, finding, connecting with you, connecting with Addo Aesthetics online, where should they go and how can they find you?
Yeah, we are addoaesthetics.com, and all of the socials, we are at Addo Aesthetics. And we also have our own podcast, Spa Marketing Made Easy, that you can listen to anywhere that you listen to your podcast.
Daniela, thank you so much for your time and sharing your perspective and wisdom with our audience. I really appreciate it.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Lucky Orange Show. Before we go, if you haven't tried Lucky Orange yet, head over to www.luckyorange.com for a free 7-day trial of our leading conversion rate optimization toolkit. What's in that toolkit? Well, let's start with session recordings and heat maps. With session recordings, you can watch a full playback of an entire visitor journey on your website. Everywhere they click, scroll, move, everything they do on your site, a full playback. So you can see what's getting in the way of conversions and what is getting people over that finish line to convert. With dynamic heat maps, you can see the average visitor behavior on a page. So you can see clicks, moves, and scrolls. You can see how far down the page the average visitor is scrolling. And if something is below that line, that means that more than 50% of visitors are not seeing that. Lucky Orange also offers tools like live chat, announcements, and surveys so that you can communicate with your website visitors in real time. So again, if you have not tried Lucky Orange, or if you're not a user yet, head over to luckyorange.com, check it out, 7-day free trial with no credit card required. If you're a Shopify store owner, head over to the Shopify App Store to download the Lucky Orange app to your store today, as well as BigCommerce, HubSpot, Square, and many more. Check us out, and happy optimizing.